Imagine this. It's the 1800s, and a mysterious plague is sweeping across Europe and America. It's called the White Death, and it's behind 1 out of every 7 deaths. With no science to explain it, people filled in the blanks with folklore. Fear took over. And in some communities, that fear led to full-blown vampire panics, with people genuinely believing their dead relatives were climbing out of the grave to drain the life from the living.
So today, let's unmask the White Death. We're going to dive into the 144-year-old story of the man who replaced that superstition with hard science. But we're also going to uncover the dark, complicated paradox of his legacy. It's quite a story. You have to remember, back in the 19th century, nobody really knew what caused tuberculosis, so they blamed it on, well, everything. Some thought it was a hereditary curse, passed down through families. Others blamed bad air or miasma. There was even this wild idea that life, like a disease, could just spontaneously generate out of thin air. So how did we get from vampires to science? Well, the shift was really driven by a trio of absolute pioneers. You had Louis Pasteur, who gave us the whole theory, proving that germs were real. Then you had Joseph Lister, who applied that theory and basically made surgery survivable. And then there's the focus of our story, Robert Koch. He gave us the methodology, the actual blueprint for hunting down these specific microbial killers. I mean, these 3 guys literally built the foundation of modern medicine. And that hunt all came to a head on one incredible evening, March 24th, 1882. A doctor named Robert Koch, who was known for being pretty shy, stood up in front of the Berlin Physiological Society, and he announced that he had found the killer behind the White Death. He'd identified the bacterium, which he named Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And the room, filled with the top scientists of the day, was apparently just dead silent. They were stunned. So how in the world did he make this invisible killer suddenly visible? It was brilliant, really. See, the TB bacterium has this waxy outer wall that acts like a defense shield, making it almost impossible to stain and see. So Koch came up with this ingenious chemical cocktail. He used methylene blue and caustic potash to break through that waxy wall and dye the bacteria blue. Then he used Bismarck brown to stain all the surrounding tissue, making that tiny blue culprit just pop right out under the microscope. But he didn't stop there. This is where his true genius came in. He created this incredibly rigorous logical framework that became the gold standard for proving a specific germ causes a specific disease. We call them Koch's postulates. Think of it like a detective's checklist. Step 1, find the same suspect at every single crime scene. Step 2, isolate that suspect, grow it in a pure culture. Step 3, show that this isolated suspect causes the exact same crime in a new healthy victim. And finally, step 4, find that original suspect in the new victim. This methodical way of thinking became the very bedrock of epidemiology. So there in Berlin, Robert Koch gave the world the blueprint it needed to finally fight its invisible enemies. He was, for all intents and purposes, a hero. But, and this is a big but, the story doesn't end there. Just a couple of decades later, our scientific hero's journey is about to take a very, very dark turn. Let's jump forward to 1906, in what was then German East Africa. Koch was there to study a different disease, sleeping sickness. But his methods here are a chilling reminder that scientific brilliance and ethical goodness are not the same thing. In fact, this is where science became a tool of colonial control. Koch set up what he himself called concentration camps to forcibly round up and isolate infected Africans. And he didn't see them as patients needing care. He referred to them with this awful, dehumanizing term, Kranken material, sick material. They weren't people to him. They were objects for his experiments. You know, the ethical violations here are just staggering. It wasn't just the camps or the language. His entire approach was based on a clear racial hierarchy. He actually argued that it was, and I'm quoting here, not desirable to test new medications on Europeans. In his mind, African bodies were simply the raw material for his riskiest trials. And what was he testing? A drug called atoxyl. It was a compound based on arsenic, and he knew it was toxic. For the captive subjects he injected, the results were horrific. They suffered agonizing pain, systemic poisoning with vomiting and jaundice. It was brutal. And the final, documented human cost of these experiments? Out of 1,600 subjects, 22 people were left permanently blind.
Just a horrific, tragic outcome of research where all ethics were thrown out the window.
Okay, so that was over a century ago. But this is where the story comes crashing right into our present day. Because here's the shocking paradox. 144 years after Koch first identified it, that same ancient disease is once again a massive global crisis.
Yeah, you heard that right. According to the World Health Organization, TB has actually surpassed COVID-19 to become the world's #1 infectious killer. Again. Just in 2024, more than 1.2 million people died from a disease we thought we'd conquered.
And this ancient enemy has learned some scary new tricks. The biggest threat we face now is multi-drug resistant TB. Now, globally, about 3% of new cases are resistant. But look at this. In the WHO's European region, that number jumps to a staggering 23%. A 19th century disease is literally outsmarting our 21st century medicine.
But here's the hopeful part. Today's fight isn't just about new technology. It's also armed with the hard, painful lessons we learned from Koch's failures. The mission now isn't just to finish the fight, but to do it ethically. A perfect example of this is the revolution in diagnostics. For decades, we relied on these invasive sputum samples. They're unpleasant, they're difficult for kids, and they put health workers at risk. But now, we're moving to simple, non-invasive tongue swabs. This is what people-centered care looks like. It's safer, faster, and accessible to everybody.
And the whole ethical framework has evolved too. Today, you'll hear public health experts talk about a just transition. What that means is we finally understand we can't just treat the germ. We have to tackle the root social causes of the disease. Things like poverty, inequality, even environmental factors that put stress on people's lungs. It's a total shift from Koch's purely biomedical view. And you know what? If the moral argument isn't enough, there is an incredibly powerful economic case for doing this right. It turns out that ending TB isn't just the right thing to do, it's one of the smartest investments we can possibly make. For every single dollar we put into TB control, we get a $43 return in health and economic productivity. That's just an amazing figure.
Which leaves us with one last, pretty provocative question. We have the better, safer technology. We have the ethical framework. We have the undeniable economic proof that this is a smart investment. So why does this ancient disease still kill over 1 million people every single year? It seems the final battle against TB isn't just a matter of science anymore. It's a matter of political and social will.